Hi, everybody. I'm Ross the Boss. I'm here with my co-host, Dr. Dan Ratner. Our guest today is like a quad threat. He's not a triple threat, quad threat. He's an actor. He's a stand-up comic. He's actually a producer, and he's an author. And his new book is called The History of Stand-Up, from Mark Twain, who started at the Improv, all the way to Dave Chappelle. Unbelievable. And I want to welcome to our show, Wayne Federman. Wayne, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That was very intense introduction.
Very intense here.
I don't know I feel like we're at an 8 or a 9. I'm ready to try to match that.
There we go. Don't be yourself. So Before we get started, we're a sports show. We're a sports network. That's all we do is talk sports. We love sports. You wrote a book. Your first book was about, I can't say his name, Pistol Pete Maravich. Thank you. And where's the connection between you and Pistol Pete Maravich? Why did this book come about? It's like you're from Maryland and you grew up in Florida. I mean, you've never really been to LSU at all. I mean, how did this book come about?
All right, I will tell you. First of all, I love drama. That's why I love sports in a huge way. Watch a lot of it, but there's no better, more compelling sports story, in my opinion, than the life of Pistol Pete Maravich. And as you know, I think you mentioned it earlier, I have 89 acting credits. I studied with one of the legendary acting teachers. Her name is Stella Adler. And
sure.
Yeah. And so I just love, it's a Shakespearean story, and that's why I wanted to tell it, hoping someday to maybe make a movie about it.
So give us a little sneak peek. Why is it such a great story? I mean, I know
because it's like
one of the best.
Yeah, but it's this tragic. It's thrilling and it's a tragedy. It's a Shakespearean in that regard. He averaged 44 points a game in college. That means if he had a 40-point game, he was hurting his average. That would hurt his average. So, and this was without a 3-point line. And then he played with an absolute abandon. It was like a Harlem Globetrotter in a regular game. Like you see it now, there's a lot more flash and Magic Johnson in the 80s and all that. But at the time, it was just mind-bending, blowing. But in order to get these skills, he had to kind of give up his childhood. He just practiced like for 8 hours a day, over and over, drilling himself, drilling, alone in this gym in Clemson, South Carolina. So then he gets to the pros. His teammates don't like him so much because he's making so much more money because advertisers go at him. Has a star-crossed career in the NBA. He's one of the top 50 players. Retires, got a championship, and he was very distraught. Finds Christianity, dies, drops dead at age 40. Wait, here's the kicker. Do an autopsy. Find out he's missing a right coronary artery. Should have never lived to the age of 20, let alone scored 44 points a game in college, 24.2 points a game in the NBA. By the way, still has a higher scoring average than Steph Curry.
That is fascinating. So first of all, I want to congratulate you on surviving Ross's introduction.
Yeah, no, that was a lot. That was like being in a wind tunnel.
I've known Wayne for so long. I wanted to say, I want to give him his props. He deserves it.
It's true. Ross, you were building up momentum towards this moment for years. I can't fault you. But Wayne, when did Pete Maravich first come on your radar? I mean, were you like a little kid unfortunately, I'm a little too young to have seen him play live in person. I guess I could have if I lived I was alive at the time, but nowhere near Louisiana. Like Ross said, he played at LSU. And it was this is a great question. Right before he died, he put out a 4 VHS, I don't know if the kids know what that is, series of I know.
Basketball instructional tapes. And you could buy them from ESPN. They were incredible. And that's when I first really was like, who is this guy? Because I always thought he was kind of like a little bit of a washout in the NBA. And then I looked at his stats. I was like, oh my God, this guy had an amazing NBA career. Again, one of the top 50 players of all time. And obviously Hall of Famer, all of that. And so these tapes were fascinating because here he was months away from dying from this heart condition, doing these drills that were they started out simple and then they got so complex and impossible. And he would always like turn to the camera and go, here, do it. And I was like, Pete, you're the only one that can really do these things. Come on, no one can do the flap blackjack or whatever it was called. So I was just fascinated by him. And then when he died, I was shocked, like everyone. And then when the autopsy came out, I was like, okay, this is an amazing, tragic, thrilling, inspiring story. There's so much to it. I hope that tells the story, but
that tells the story. That was, as I mentioned before, you have, like, I looked at your IMDb and I didn't realize you have 89 acting credits, not including commercials. I mean,
not including commercials, right?
You've been in, I don't know many commercials, but you've been in a lot of commercials.
Yeah.
You produced a lot of shows. You was also been a writer for many shows, but 89 acting credits.
Does that seem like a lot? Does that seem like a lot to you?
It sounds like your mailbox is full with residual checks. Someone's
actually, it's so interesting you should bring it up, because I know Dan was talking about back injury. My mailman, or mail person, we call him, or he is a dude.
Mail person, right?
Yeah, he's suing me because he threw out his back because of the number of residual checks he has to deliver to my house.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Well, listen,
so I'm in the middle of that right now. I can't really. I signed an NDA. I can't really talk about it, but it's a bad situation.
So having so many credits, I mean, was there any show that you went in for that you were disappointed? You thought you nailed it, and you come out and you find out you didn't get it.
So many.
I mean, what's the one that stands out? I mean, there has to be some show that.
Yes, there was. I was up for this. Thanks for bringing this up. You're gonna make me cry.
I love bringing this up.
My biggest disappointments. There was a show called News Radio.
Sure.
And
right?
Sure.
Yeah. And wait, I'll give you a couple of these disappointments. It was between me and Andy Dick, believe it or not. Andy Dick got the role. That would have made my career. Then there was a commercial campaign, which was for Apple. And it was like Mr. Apple, Mr. Mac. Do you remember that? It was with Justin Long, I think the kid's name is.
Yep.
And so I was Mr. PC right up to the last audition. That campaign ran for 5 years. Again, I could right now be living in Beverly Hills instead of Mid-City, is where I live now. Which I'm not complaining, but
you also had to do the Hertz campaign that did very well, and I was saying not exactly for a long time after that aired.
Thanks for remembering.
So let's not pretend that your career is like.
You were the one that brought up the disappointments.
I know, but I want to make sure the audience knows that you're a very successful actor.
See, I didn't realize this though. Wayne is the not exactly guy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Say it for us, Wayne.
Your voice, will you say it?
Not exactly.
Oh my God!
That just cost us $1,000.
Yeah.
It did.
And here's to bring it back to sports, because I know this is what this is all about. That campaign replaced O.J. Simpson for Hertz, because they had heard, this is before the killing and his alleged killing of his wife and the other guy, that he had a number of spousal batteries charges that were brought up to the Beverly Hills Police Department. Or Brentwood Police Department. So they dropped him. I don't know if you remember. He used to run through the airport.
Yeah, he used to jump over suitcases.
Yep,
exactly. Go, Juice, go. So this was the first campaign after O.J. Simpson. And so he actually has a motive.
You replaced the juice.
Yeah,
I replaced the juice.
Wayne, listen, 32. I'm a therapist, so I'm just going to recommend don't follow O.J. any further. That was fine.
Just that one thing, okay.
Just that one thing. So actually, now Wayne, I want to ask you about some of the other parts of your life, because apparently you were a teacher. I was a teacher too in L.A. No less.
Dan was a teacher in Compton for kids, which is very commendable. I mean,
Can I ask what school it was?
It was at Bunch Elementary School. I was a third grade teacher.
Ralph Bunch, yeah.
You know it.
I know the schools.
So I wanted to ask you, teaching to me was the hardest job I ever did. I wondered, what's harder? Is it being a teacher or being a stand-up comic? It's a little, they're kind of the same thing in a way.
Being a stand-up comic's much harder than being a teacher.
All right, tell me
how.
It's
not even in the same. It's not. It's like Little League and the majors. It's like Pony League and the majors.
All right, tell me about the majors.
And the majors. I don't know which one of these you know, but
I know all of those references.
T-ball and the majors.
Listen, you grew up on stage with Mark Twain. It's pretty impressive.
I middled for Mark Twain for years.
It's incredible.
Talking about Mark Twain, I want to talk about your new book. Congratulations on your new book.
All right. I don't know why you're yelling at me.
The history of stand-up. I never got the call to be interviewed, but we'll talk about that later.
Okay.
Now, Mark Twain, you have Mark Twain in the title.
Yeah.
I don't think he started at the Improv. Bud takes credit for a lot of people.
Yes,
I don't think
does.
Mark Twain's one of them. I know Mark Twain was a very great writer, and he's a humorist. I know that also about.
Do you know that they give the Mark Twain Prize every year to the top?
Yeah, my old boss Jay Leno won it. Yes.
Okay.
I actually know, but yeah. But that all being said, why did you put Mark Twain in the title?
Because a lot of people don't know where to start with the history of stand-up. A lot of people start with Mort Saul. A lot of people start with Richard Pryor. A lot of people start with Robert Klein at the Improv. There's a million options. So it's like, let me see if I can do a little research into this. And this is what I've come up with. And there's actually a guy before Mark Twain. I just put Mark Twain on there because I'm trying to sell books. And I had Artemis Ward, who's the comedian that Mark Twain saw. Nobody knows who that is. So
I have no idea who he is. No.
Yeah. But Artemis Ward was before Twain. Twain saw Artemis do his act and was like, oh, then wrote a whole book about it called How to Tell a Joke or How to Tell a Story. And then when Mark Twain, I don't know if you know this, lost all of his money in a startup, he did this. He thought he was being ripped off for these books, Tom Sawyer, Huck Finn. I'm sure you're familiar with them. Anyway, he thought he was being ripped off. So he invested in this new printing press, which was the greatest printing press in the world when it worked. Unfortunately, it didn't work very often. So he lost his shirt. And then he was like, how am I going to make money? Let me do it Artemis Ward style. I'm going to go on the road. Went not over in the United States, all over the world. India, England, Australia, Hungary, an entire world tour. Made all that money back.
Is there any documentation of what he talked about and what he said? Did people write it down? I know there's probably no audio on it.
It's a great question. It's a great question. And there's no audio of him at all.
No, yeah.
There's a little film footage of him. I don't know. I mean, I'm actually going to be doing it at book event at the Mark Twain House. So I'm going to ask if there's ever a transcription of it. But as far as I know, no. But I'm going to find out next Wednesday. So
this is an incredible story,
Can I come back?
I mean, I knew that, Mark Twain is a humorist, but I didn't know that he actually had to go make money doing that. That's amazing.
Yeah. That's just one of the many things you're going to learn in my book. No, it's really interesting. And then this is before vaudeville. And then a lot of comedians started in vaudeville that you would probably know, Dan, like Bob Hope or Jack Benny or Milton Berle. Do those names mean anything?
Actually,
all of them. You're too young to that.
Yeah, doing it actually in the beginning. After I graduated college, my first show that I sold was the Milton Berle golf tournament.
Here it comes.
That died from cancer. And I got to spend like 4 months with him at the Friars. Every day I would be with Milton at the Friars Club.
I love it.
And it was like Red Buttons, Milton Berle, but Buddy Arnold, his writing partner, was with us. So I used to drive Milton to gigs. I mean, I spent so much time with Milton. I was like his second wife. I mean, he would call me all the time. Ross, I need a ride here. So I learned all these great stories.
That's incredible. Did you remember them? Do you remember?
I'll give you. I told the story before to Dan, but I'll tell you just how funny he was. I mean, we spent so much time. He's like my grandfather. So we were at the Friars Club. I get up to go to the bathroom. He said, I have to go too. Can I go with you? So I said, sure. So we're in the bathroom. He says, do you want to have a contest? Hey, baby, do you want to have a contest? That's how Milton talked.
I was just about the size of his.
And I'm like a young 23-year-old kid. I'm like, sure, what's the contest? I'll just take enough out to win. Whoever has the biggest, wins. So he pulls it out, and it's like a golf club. I mean, the rumors are true. I mean, it goes through his knee. It's not a joke.
I'm not denying it.
I was like in shock. I mean, 23-year-old kid. I'm totally like, I was like, working with Milton, trying to raise money for cancer in this golf tournament. We're making calls. We're getting sponsors.
Right.
And long story short, I was kind of mortified for the rest of my life. But it was an unbelievable experience working with Milton. And again, if I had to pick somebody from like the beginning of time that was really like a real comedian, he would be like on one of the top of the list.
Oh yeah. He was emceeing. There was a club. This is one of the things I talk about in the book. There's always been like a destination booking that a comedian strived for. And when he was starting in vaudeville, it was called Playing the Palace, which was this theater, 47th on Broadway. So we ended up playing the Palace. That was a huge feather in your cap. Then later on, it was like, oh, playing the Copacabana. That was the biggest nightclub in this. Then it was like, oh, doing the Ed Sullivan Show. And then maybe doing Jack Parr. And obviously, I'm sure, Ross, you remember when you were a kid, doing Carson or something like that, doing The Tonight Show. And then getting an HBO special. And now Netflix. But it's the destination changes through the years. But there's always like this one thing that kind of like, you're like a made man. You're like imprinted.
The stamp
like,
of approval.
Yes, yeah, exactly. So that's exciting.
Who was your favorite interview for the book? You know, and by the way, I'm glad that you didn't name it From Artemis Ward to Gallagher.
Thank you. I'm not an idiot. I'm a complete idiot.
Let's not push it, Wayne, please.
Okay. Well, this is the thing is I didn't do that much original like interviewing. This is just stuff I've known over the years, and I teach this class at USC, and this is basically what I teach in the class. There's a little more information in it, but I've actually, there's a podcast I do called The History of Stand-Up, which my two favorite interviews were Shecky Green and Lily Tomlin.
Those are great.
Wow.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. I mean, I've been around, as you know, my past. I've been around the older comics a lot. I mean, the Shecky Greens, the Milton Berles, the Lily Tomlins.
There's only one Shecky Green. There's just Shecky Green. There's no plural. I don't know why you're saying plural. Yeah.
Shecky Greens. No, I'm just making.
How many Milton Berles? There's one. Huge.
Milton Berle, you're right. But I mean, just these older comics. I mean, it was a totally different business back then, as you know.
Well, this is what I'm saying. The business was slightly different, but what they did, what Twain did, what Berle did, is the same thing that Mulaney and Chappelle and Burr and Amy Schumer, anyone. It's all standing on stage trying to get laughs. That feeling, that hasn't changed. Yes, the venues changed. Like I said, they're playing the Palace now. They're playing Madison Square Garden. I don't know if you heard. Speaking of sports, I'm trying to keep bringing it back to sports.
I love it.
Is Kevin Hart sold out Lincoln Financial Field in Philly? Sold it out. Football stadium.
He did that. He did a couple years ago too. He did Veterans Stadium too, I believe.
Oh, he did the Vet as well.
Yeah,
oh wow.
He did. He's in Philly. It's his hometown, so he sells tickets like crazy. But watching a comedian in a venue like that doesn't sound that great. But that's me. But again,
what about Madison Square Garden? Is that too big for you?
They have the theater, which is a lot better. But
interesting.
Seeing comics in a big venue, you know this. I mean,
it's up to you. I feel like it's a different kind. It's kind of a different kind of event.
So with your new book, who would you want to interview, living or dead, that you didn't get to talk to, who you think would really contribute to your book the most?
That's a great question. Yeah. That's a good one. That's the first good question so far on this podcast.
You son of a...
God damn it, Wayne.
You can say Gallagher if you want. I mean, I handed it to you.
He's actually a nice guy.
Gallagher 2 is first. Let me see. That's a good question. I think I would like to... There was a radio comedian that I'm fascinated by the name of Fred Allen. And he had this huge radio show, but... I've read 2 of his books, and I would have liked to speak to him. There's also this woman, an impressionist, named Elsie Janis. She's the first one ever to go overseas and entertain the troops in World War I.
Wow.
20 years before Bob Hope and the USO even existed. The USO didn't exist. Bob Hope did. But before Bob Hope ever toured and for the troops, she was doing it in World War. And I don't know if you saw 1917, but that was...
I did.
It's a tough war. It was mustard gas. It was trench. It was tough. That was
a lot of dirt. A lot of people.
A lot of dirt. It's a lot of death. A lot of dirt.
Yeah, people talk about it like it was easy, but we know it wasn't.
Right, exactly. Really? Okay.
Now wait, I want to ask you. You
anything?
You played in these games with Gary Shandling.
Yes.
I mean, if I wanted to observe a comic, that's where I would really want to do it.
Oh my God!
What were those games like? How competitive were those games?
They were. I mean. It depended who was playing. So this is Gary Shandling. Luckily, and Ross knows this, I got to play Larry Sanders' brother on the Larry Sanders Show. I played Stan Sanders on that show. So I got to know Gary. For some stupid reason, he likes me. And so invited me to this game.
You're likable. You're a nice guy. Everybody likes you.
That's not true. That's not completely true.
Not exactly.
Thanks, Dan. Look at this.
I'm kidding.
Somebody's listening. So he was so, I don't know, so incredible, so creative. We used to hang out and we would play. It depends who was playing. Sometimes they got a little hot, but for the most part, they were friendly and fun. And it was my favorite thing. We did it for 20 years. Every Sunday at noon. I'll never forget it.
Okay. I was invited a couple times. I went with Jack Cohen. And
you did?
Yeah. I played a couple times. I usually play softball on the weekends, but I decided to play basketball a couple times, which I did pretty well. They were pretty impressed.
Yeah.
Kevin Nealon tried to guard me. Couldn't do it.
Nealon was very good.
So talking about Gary Shandling, you produced his documentary for
Co-produced.
Sorry, Judd. You co-produced his documentary, which I loved. I mean, I actually was in Judd's office, and you actually were in that day too. And all the stuff that you guys collected from his family, like just mounds like of his diaries. I mean, it's incredible, all the stuff that Judd had that he had like laid is all on the third floor of his office. And I mean, tell us about that, Wayne. I mean, it must have been really emotional for you to do because you had a close tie with him. I mean, just tell the audience a little bit.
Well, Gary never got married. So he lived like me, he's a single guy. So all of his stuff was at his house, and his parents were no longer alive. So sort of Judd and his first cousin were like in charge of like his estate and his lawyer. So Judd just decided to go through these diaries and was reading them and started crying and was laughing and was like, this might make a great documentary. And so after the funeral and the memorial service, he started to put it together. And then HBO was like, yeah, we'll air this, because they did the Larry Sanders Show. And it was just in the same way writing the Pete Maravich book. It was an honor. I know this sounds like a goofy Hollywood thing to say, but
not at all.
It was a total honor just to be around it and put that story together and help shape it in the smallest way. It's mainly Judd. But in the same way, when I was in Pete Maravich's house in Covington, Louisiana, going through his personal diaries and his day runner, and it was, I just, you always just hope that you do something that for the people that love him, that are closest to them in their family, that it somehow, is something they can be proud of.
I think it's an incredible honor. And speaking of Gary Shandling, he's one of these guys, he made me laugh so many times.
Yeah, oh my God.
That I could look at him and he makes me laugh. Like Eddie Murphy's the same way, Richard Pryor, you see it in their eyes. Christopher Walken's another one that just, he'll crack you up.
Comics, yeah, Christopher Walken, one of the great stand-ups. Thanks maybe that's the guy you should have interviewed for the book. Chris Walken.
He would have given. But Greg will call him right now. Greg, get him on the
line. Get Walken on the line.
Of course, you couldn't have gotten the tonality in a book.
Oh, he's so good. I've been I feel like I'm a lucky guy. I know earlier we talked about huge career disappointments, because that's Ross's move and put me off my game right at the start.
I make you look humble, and I make you look likable. And
I like it.
Everybody wants to hear about a winner. People like to hear people not achieving success all the time.
Yeah, well,
I don't know.
I know that, and I've been doing this. I've been doing interviews for a while, so I guess I make my guests look good.
Ross likes the Shakespearean tragedies, but let me end it on a more positive note. Shakespearean comedy. You had a band, the Truck Stop Harrys, which I love that name.
Yep.
I did not get to hear your music yet, but I want to listen to that. But you're a drummer. Do I have this right?
I play drums. I play piano. My first thing in show business, outside of playing in weddings when I was in high school, was I had a big closer. Ross knows this.
Yep.
I played the electric ukulele. I would play like Hendrix and Zeppelin on the uke. Big finish.
I mean, that's what we should be finishing on right now. But I got to say, I'm impressed by anybody who can drum. I think too much. I start drumming and I'm like, I'm in rhythm. And so if you start thinking you're in rhythm, you're done.
That's the killer right there.
Well, Wayne, we want to thank you for coming on with us. We'd love to have you back anytime. I know what Ross means now. I do feel a little like I'm talking to myself, and I mean that as a compliment, because I actually like myself.
It's a compliment, guys. And Anybody that wants Wayne's book, and you should definitely buy it. It's at bookstores, and you can go to WayneFederman.com.
Or Amazon. Go to
Amazon. But I know Amazon charges a little fee. I'd rather have you go to your website.
No. It's better through Amazon than through
okay.
mine.
So go to Amazon. The History of Comedy. You'll find it.
History of stand-up.
History of stand-up. My bad. Mark Twain to Dave Chappelle.
Love it.
It's in bookstores too.
And by the way, the improv is a big part of that story.
It better be. I was going to ask you about that, but I don't. You were a fixture at the improv for many years.
Yeah. No, I mean that club is just phenomenal.
Wayne, I'm going to order it. I'm going to order it right now, and I actually mean it. It sounds fascinating.
Tell me what you. Actually, Dan, please tell me what you think of it.
I absolutely
will.
Good
or bad.
Thank you for coming on the show. This was great. Thank you, Wayne.
Thanks for having me, guys. You're welcome.